Hello, and welcome to the Coach's Cup podcast. I am Sonya Green from Sonya Green Coaching. And today we have Dr. Nora Vasquez, who is a certified physician coach. Nora, if you don't mind, let us know a little bit about the coaching that you do.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. I'm thrilled and delighted to be here. As you said, I'm a physician coach. I am from San Antonio, Texas, and was trained as a certified internist and went through and decided, through my own coaching career, I decided to pursue a certification in coaching because I experienced burnout in my career. And
Mhm.
I learned so much through that journey to wellness that I decided, you know what? Everybody needs to know about coaching and how it can really help
Yeah.
you create a life that you love. And so that's what brought me here today to share all the knowledge that I've learned throughout this journey.
Yeah. And you coach different kinds of medical professionals, yes? Not just other doctors?
That's right. So I coach anybody in healthcare, because I really feel very much aligned with my mission to heal the healers because we need
Mhm.
healing too.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
we do a really good job taking care of our, patients, our communities, leading and advocating, but sometimes we forget that we need time and self-care and to have the time to reflect and to fill back our cup. And so it's just been a delight to be able to coach hundreds and hundreds of physicians, APPs, advanced practice providers, nurses, social workers all throughout the United States and Canada to help them achieve that harmonious work-life balance that oftentimes feels so elusive to us.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? Is
Yes.
burnout and
Yeah,
how to get that work-life balance back.
that's right. Yes. And you asked me about, what do I do? And part of what I do is I coach one-on-one, but I also have a coaching program where I coach in a community of physicians, healthcare leaders, where we come together and can really support one another, encourage one another, and learn from each other, which I
Yeah,
find, healing is really amplified when we're in community.
absolutely. I think, people don't realize it's easy to believe that our problems are individual problems. And we don't realize sometimes the person next to us is experiencing the same thing. So
Yeah.
knowing that is powerful.
Yeah. When I was in burnout, it felt very, very lonely. I thought I was the only one that somehow
Mhm.
I didn't get the memo on
Yeah,
how
exactly.
to create work-life balance. When I would look around, like everybody seemed to have it all together and they were, living their best life. And I was like, well, something's missing because, if I'm living the dream, why am I not happy?
Yeah.
And what I come to realize is that, yeah, sometimes you're not happy and that's okay. But you can get so much insight, right? Because our emotions are trying to communicate to us. They're trying to get our attention. And when we're usually dissatisfied, unhappy, it's because there's been a boundary that's been violated or we're not aligned with our core values. And so it's been a joy to be able to help people realign to those core values again and really
Yeah.
create a life that they love.
So when people come to you,
Mhm.
what usually happens to the point that they've decided, okay, I have to do something? I mean, you experience the same thing, right? So what is that you usually see in people?
Yeah, there's a really great quote, and I just came back from a retreat at a leading at a healthcare retreat for a major organization in Atlanta, and I'm going to read it to you, this quote, because I really think it's very poignant, and it's by John Maxwell. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's pretty well known,
Mhm.
and what he says is that people change when they hurt enough, they have to change. When they learn enough that they want to change, or when they receive enough that they're able to change. And I
Mhm.
think that's so true, right?
Yeah.
When you create the awareness that, oh, something's just not right, then, when you know better, you do better. And
Right.
so it's just creating that awareness for yourself.
Yeah. So
Yes.
how how do you work with people? What do you do to help them? They have realized they've got to change. What do you do to help them make those changes?
Yeah, so we usually meet, one-on-one or in the group. We'll talk about some of the challenges that we're all facing. And a lot of times it's that work-life balance. Like they just feel
Mhm.
disconnected, or maybe they want more growth and development in their life. Or maybe they're at a pivot, in their career and they're saying, I'm not, I know I want to lead more. I want more a fulfilling career, but I don't know how to get there. And
Yeah.
so, we talk about, getting clearer on our career goals and what they think would create that fulfillment and joy again in medicine. And so, really, it's just a matter of, you know, working with them one on one and figuring out what are your core values. And I take them through an exercise where we identify the top 5 core values that matter to them.
Mhm.
And then that's going to serve as their North Star as they make all their decisions for their career and their family life. And that really is very empowering when they can remember their core values, because that's going to guide them to create
Yeah.
that life they love again.
So for some of our listeners, let's say they're not healthcare professionals, so they
Mhm.
can't come to you for coaching. How would you suggest that they figure out what their core values are?
Yeah, you can find this on the internet. There's lots of books on this, but really it's just a matter of you can even Google it. What are some core values, and then look at the list and just circle 5.
Mhm.
That speak to you, that resonate with you. And what's so important is that these core values change over time, because
Yes,
there are different priorities in your life. When you're a young
absolutely.
mom and you're trying to raise your kiddos, right? Your priorities change,
Mhm.
versus when you're kind of a seasoned, clinician in the world, right? Our priorities are constantly changing. And so this is an exercise that I take my clients through, each quarter. I ask them to revisit this because there's so much insight and growth that can happen from that.
Yeah.
And the goal, I take them through the wheel of life as well, where we look at all 8 components of their life and we rate their degree of satisfaction. And so when you can kind of assess and create that insight for yourself, the goal isn't to have, perfect tens all around the circle, right?
Yeah.
In all areas of your life. The goal is pick one and work on that one for a quarter and create some growth movement in that, avenue. And then once you feel satisfied, then you can move to the next area of your life that you want, some growth. And so it's just, realizing that for many of us high achievers, we tend to be perfectionists. And so we have to overcome those limiting beliefs. Like, no, life isn't perfect. It's okay. Like,
Yeah.
have grace.
I love that. The idea of just picking one and working on it one at a time,
Mhm.
because so many times I see with my clients, they're like, everything has to get better. I have to do it all because that's the mode they're in, that high achiever mode of getting everything perfect. And it's like, you can just work on this one area and move it forward and then take another piece and move it forward. It's not a race.
Right. And I think, for many of us, especially, in medicine or, professional careers, we think we have this idea that we have to keep all the balls in the air at all times, right?
Yes.
We have to be perfect and, the perfect mom, the perfect leader, advocate, physician, CEO, like all the things. And if one ball drops, we think, "Ugh,
We
we
failed.
failed. We always think that.
Yeah,
And that's what's
absolutely.
driving our burnout, is this perception that we have to be perfect, and the truth is we don't. And so here, I'll give you one tip that really changed my life. What if you could just have one win a day? Just one.
Mhm.
Like that changed my whole life, because now
Mhm.
I didn't have to have perfect tens all across the board. I could just like, today, I want to be a good mom. And so what does that mean for me? It means I get to spend 10 minutes on the couch reading a book with my son,
Uh-huh.
and that's my gold star for today.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, I'll be a great, physician, and I'll focus on my patients. It's not like you can't do them, simultaneously, but
Sure.
it's like, where are you putting your attention? What you focus
Mhm.
on matters. And so being able to kind of incorporate that into your life is
Yeah.
is really helpful.
So the whole idea of work-life balance,
Yes.
how how do you do that on a regular basis? Because that's what, you know, I guess there's a debate. Is there even really a work-life balance? What is that? So what do you
Yeah.
think that is?
Yeah, I think, we have this misconception that balance should be like the scales. Like, if I'm
Exactly.
spending, an hour at work, then I need to spend an hour at home or, and that's not how it works. That's not
Mhm,
real life. And so the way I like to think about it is harmony. Like, how do we
mhm,
create a more harmonious work life balance? And so the way I define harmony, or I guess Google defines harmony is marked by agreement in feeling, attitude, or action, forming a pleasingly consistent whole, congruous. And I love that definition because it's
mm,
like, what is agreeable to my soul? What resonates with me? Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be equal. It just has to form a more pleasing experience of my life in the world and how I show up.
yeah,
And so you get to define that. You get to, redefine success. You get to redefine failure. What if there is no failure? There's just learning, growing, and evolving, right? Like
mhm,
that gives you so much freedom to create a life again on purpose, intentional that you love and
yeah,
that is not based on other people's expectations, but only on how you want to, show up in the world.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, the whole idea of balance is I love that you said it's not a scale because that is how I think people expect it to be, but it's on a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we have small children, they are going to take more of our time but over the course of our lives, we
Hmm.
can balance that out because there's a time when it won't take every moment like it seems like it does when they're little.
Yeah, 100%. I have 2 boys, they're 9 and 11, and they're a little bit more self-sufficient, but I still wanna be present. I
Oh,
still wanna,
absolutely.
take them out and really, be part of that, parenting role. And so it's just redefining, in this season of your life, how do you want that to look like?
Mhm.
At
Yeah.
work, at home, and just for yourself, how do you wanna show up for you?
Yeah. I
Mhm.
probably should have led with this, but why do you think we are seeing so much more burnout
Mm,
today? It's a really a hot topic. You see it across professions.
yeah.
It's with teachers, it's with physicians, it's with any kind of executive professional role. Probably even beyond that. But why do you think we see such an increase in it today?
Yeah, well, I think, it's this idea of the great reprioritization, right? I think the last 3 years with COVID, we had burnout before COVID, it was always there,
Mhm.
but I think, having COVID just really kind of gave us pause and time to reflect and realize, like, oh, time is short.
Yeah.
I could get sick. People die. Like we forget, that there is uncertainty in the world. And it really helped us kind of like bring into focus what really matters in
Mhm.
this moment, right? We can get kind of numbed out with social media and entertainment, all those things. But then when we're kind of faced with the reality of life, it I think, there's a blessing in that experience that we can use to our benefit, right?
Mm.
And I think for many in healthcare especially, it was front and center. I mean, for those frontline workers, they
Oh,
saw
sure.
so much suffering, and it really prioritized their goals for their life. And now everybody's talking about it because that's what really matters at the end of the day is,
Yeah.
how do you live a life that's meaningful, that creates meaningful connection that you feel aligned to. And so I think for many people across industries, teachers, healthcare, finance, I mean, it's just everywhere. Even executives that I coach too, like they also need support and encouragement, and then also that peer community to help them recognize like they're not alone, right? This
Mhm.
is part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're able to normalize that in the group coaching program that I lead. So
Awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you have people define their core values first, and then
Mhm.
they schedule those things into their calendars. What other tips can you give our listeners?
Yeah, so I really think, through my own journey to wellness, and it's a constant practice. So it's not like you reach this like, nirvana level
Yeah.
of like,
All done.
it's all done, one and done. No, I mean, it's just like week by week, moment by moment, having that time for reflection and recognizing, okay, today, what are the top three most important things that really matter today that I really
Mhm.
want to see on my schedule? And so being able, I'm a big fan of planning. And so when I look at my week, I like to use a Google Calendar and if I'm looking at my core values and I say, okay, meaningful connection is important to me. What does that look like specifically? And so I teach my clients to find a metric that works for them. And so it might be like date night every other week. Okay. So
Mhm.
if that's meaningful to you, then you have to plan it. You got to put it on the schedule because if it's not on the schedule, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I teach them that technique, week by week, whatever your core value is that you want to focus on for that week, plan it. And so if
Mhm.
it's taking your kid to soccer practice, and that's your meaningful connection, going for ice cream afterwards or something,
Mhm.
put that down and give yourself credit for incorporating that into your life. And that's how you create that harmonious work-life balance is that intention and then scheduling it in.
Yeah.
And
Now,
it's not that hard.
it's not, but I
Yeah.
will tell on myself a little bit. One of the things I am a big planner also,
Mhm.
but for a long time, what I did was I marked off family time and just left that block open.
Mm.
And you're right. If you don't specifically write it in the calendar, then you end up filling it. I mean, family time can be a lot of different things.
Mhm.
And so making those intentional plans, I'm going to read with my child at this time, and every moment doesn't have to be filled. I'm not a big scheduler. I have a 9-year-old also, and then we have grown children, but I'm not big on scheduling, a lot of activities,
Mhm.
but scheduling in those things that are meaningful to us was really important, and so I found out I do block off family time, but I also intentionally block off pieces within there to do things, or they don't get done.
Right, right. And there's a lot of flexibility, right? So I might block, an hour with my son and it doesn't he gets to decide, hey, do we take a walk? Do we
Yeah.
walk the dog? Do we play ball? Do we just sit and snuggle and read a book? Like it can look like whatever you want it to look like, but it's there and it's a
Mhm.
reminder and you follow through, right?
Yeah.
We follow through for everybody else, but sometimes we forget to follow through for ourselves and
Yeah.
whether that's self-care or time with the people that matter most to us.
Right. Yeah, because self-care, that's another thing. If you don't put it at a certain place on the calendar, that is one that will immediately get taken up by something else.
Yeah, and so I practice what I preach. So, like, tomorrow,
Mhm.
it's Valentine's Day, I scheduled myself a massage,
Oh, awesome.
So whatever I need, if I need a spa day just to, like, do nothing, I will do that for
Yeah.
myself, and you have to because guess
Yes.
what? Nobody's gonna do it for you.
No.
They're just not.
No. And you can't go out and serve others. I don't remember if we were talking about this and as we were
Mhm.
pre-gaming or if you actually said this, but we aren't at our best place to serve others if our cups are empty.
Right, exactly. And so many career professional women and men, we're servant leaders. We give and give and
Mhm.
give. And we have to remember we have to have that cup full again. We need
Yeah.
to re-energize, refocus, realign, and fill ourselves up. And that's great news because we're the best ones to do that because we know what we need, right? Other
Yes.
people don't always know what we need, but we do. And
Yeah.
so give that to yourself. Give
And
yourself
then we're teaching our children by
yeah,
example that they should do that for themselves and our friends, the people we work with, we set that
that's right.
example.
Yeah, when you give yourself permission to create that time for self-care, reflection, but then also, create a life that you love on purpose. It really does inspire those around you to do the
Mhm.
same,
Yeah.
right? It
They
gives them
feel your
permission.
energy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you wanna tell our listeners? Any important tips you wanna pass on to them?
Yeah, I just want to encourage them to recognize what burnout is. And so I'll just define it briefly. Burnout, again, it's across all industries.
It is.
And and so there's actually a World Health Organization definition about it. And so I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
realize this. Yeah,
I didn't either.
so there are three components. One is you start to feel emotionally or physically exhausted by your work, or you become very cynical in your thinking about your work, very negative kind of energy when you think about your work.
Mm.
And then the third is a decreased sense of personal accomplishment. Like what you do doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things, right? So if
Mhm.
you're sensing any of those kind of symptoms of burnout, it's a clue. It's a clue to say, hey, I probably need to pay attention to this, and I need to attune into like what is driving the burnout and how can I create a more aligned experience for myself,
Mhm.
and recognize that burnout comes from an occupational phenomenon of workplace stress, chronic workplace stress that's not well managed, right? And so sometimes we need help, sometimes we need support, and sometimes that's from a coach or maybe a therapist, a counselor, psychiatrist, your physician, a pastor. But I want to normalize help seeking behavior, because
Yes.
we're not here to do it alone.
Right.
We were created to be in community, and that's how our brain is wired, right? And
Yes.
so I want to give people permission to get the help and support that they need,
Mhm.
because it can really elevate your life, so that way you feel more fulfilled day to day. And then, I just want to also recommend that, find the community, find a support group, whether that's through a coaching program like you run yourself, Sonia, or, one that you can find in your community. But there is help out there, and you don't have to suffer. Suffering is optional. Pain is
Yes.
inevitable, but suffering is optional. And so I would encourage them to find the support that they need.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the way you're looking at this topic. I think, like I said, it's so relevant right now, and
Mhm.
I appreciate you coming and sharing it with us.
My pleasure.
So if we do have healthcare professionals who are looking for a coaching program, how can they find you?
Sure. So they can go to my website. It's www.renewyourmindmd.com. So renewyourmindmd.com. And they can also email me at renewyourmindmd@gmail.com as well.
Okay. And you coach both women and men, yes?
Yeah, I coach everyone, and anybody in healthcare. So physicians or nurses, social workers, healthcare professionals, anybody in healthcare. And I do offer some one-on-ones for, I do coach executives too across all fields. So I'm open to that.
Mhm.
Um, but my group coaching program is primarily for healthcare professionals, but I do one-on-one with anybody.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure.
If you're not a healthcare professional and you're looking for coaching, you can find me at sonyagreencoaching.com, or you can also come to our Coaches Cup Facebook page. And we would love to hear, how are you dealing with burnout? Are you currently experiencing burnout? And if so, what have you done to include self-care in your routine? All
Wonderful.
right. Thank you again, Nora.
My pleasure. Be
We'll,
well.
we'll see you next week.
Take care.